1,000-word single paragraph. The desert had a way of swallowing sound, swallowing truth, swallowing men whole, and on that blistering noon the cowboy named Colt Brennan felt all three tightening around him, like a noose as he rode toward the abandoned fence line that stretched crookedly across the rancher's forgotten acres. The wind carried heat like a fever, sliding across the plains in shimmering waves, and his horse snorted uneasily, as if some instinct whispered that the land itself wasn't right. Then Colt saw the figure tied to the fence, an Apache woman, tall, proud even in exhaustion, her wrists bound with coarse rope, her fringed buckskin dress dust-covered but intact, her chin lifted not in surrender but defiance. A swollen wound burned crimson across her shoulder, yet the fire in her dark eyes was brighter than the desert sun. Colt dismounted slowly, boots crunching in the dry dirt, hand hovering near his holster, not because she frightened him, but because the air around her pulsed with a tension he didn't understand. He had been told she was a trespasser, a scout for a raiding party, maybe even a threat to the nearby settlements. But as he stepped closer, he saw no fear in her, only a stubborn glare that told him she had been through worse than ropes and heat. "Do whatever you want," she said, her voice steady despite the pain. "It changes nothing." Colt froze, taken aback, because the sentence wasn't a plea or permission. It was a challenge, a razor-edged declaration that whatever he thought he knew was wrong. "Who hurt you?" he asked quietly. She didn't look at him. She looked past him toward the endless horizon, men who don't care about land or tribe or honor, men who take and burn and bury. Colt hesitated, feeling something shift inside him, a quiet alarm he couldn't name. When he touched her injured shoulder to inspect the wound, she tensed but didn't pull away. Her strength was unnerving, almost ancient. "Why tie you up?" he asked. "To send a message," she replied, still staring at the horizon. "But not to you. To them." Colt frowned. "Them who?" She finally turned her eyes to his, and he felt the weight of her gaze like a hot iron. "The ones coming," before he could question her. A distant rumble rolled across the desert floor. Not thunder, but hoofbeats multiplied by many. His horse jerked nervously. Colt scanned the horizon and saw a thin pillar of dust rising, like a warning sign carved into the sky. "Your people?" he asked, though deep down he knew the answer was no. "My hunters," she corrected. "You tied me up. They think you took me. They won't ask questions." Colt stiffened. He hadn't tied her. Someone else had. Someone who wanted exactly this misunderstanding. Suddenly everything clicked. The false report, the urgency to patrol the rancher's fence, the inexplicable wound on her shoulder. Someone set this up and Colt had walked right into it. The rumble grew louder, too fast. Too organized, not Apache riders, but something worse. Colt cut the ropes from her wrists. She stumbled but stayed upright, gripping the fence to steady herself. "Can you ride?" Colt asked. She winced but nodded. Another rumble echoed, closer now, and Colt recognized it. The sound of the Carrion Riders, a band of mercenaries known for wiping out entire camps for gold or revenge or sport. They were the kind of men who didn't leave witnesses. The woman stared straight at the rising dust cloud. "They want what I carry," she said. Colt blinked. "Carry? I don't see—" "Not on me," she interrupted. "In me. A secret older than your fences." Colt didn't know what that meant, but he knew one thing. If the riders reached them, neither of them would live long enough to ask. The wind shifted. The rumbling grew, and in that rising tension, Colt understood the true meaning of her first words. "Do whatever you want," she had said. But what she really meant was, it won't matter because the real danger hasn't arrived yet. The riders crested the ridge in a storm of hooves and dust, and the desert seemed to hold its breath as Colt stepped in front of the woman, his hand tightening on his revolver, ready to face a threat he didn't understand for a woman he had met only minutes earlier. But something deep in his gut told him that letting her fall into the wrong hands would be the beginning of something far worse, not just for him, not just for her, but for the entire stretch of land under the burning western sun. And though Colt didn't yet know the truth, or the prophecy or the power hidden inside the Apache woman who refused to break, he already knew one thing. Whatever happened next would change the desert forever. 1,000-word single paragraph. The Carrion Riders descended in a storm of dust and violence, their black-coated leader at the front like a vulture guiding a swarm. And the moment Colt saw the way they tightened formation as they approached, he knew one thing with absolute clarity. They weren't here for him. They were here for her. And they would burn the entire desert clean if that's what it took. The Apache woman stepped forward, steadier than someone with her wound should have been, her braids whipping in the hot wind, her gaze unshaken. She carried a presence larger than the empty plains, something commanding, enough that the riders slowed their advance, just to measure her strength. Colt stood beside her, revolver drawn. Though he knew a single gun against a gang like that was like throwing sand at a wildfire. "Get on the horse," he whispered. She shook her head. "If I run, they follow. If I stay, you die." Her logic was brutal, but so was the truth behind it. Colt knew she was right, but he also knew leaving her wasn't an option he could live with. The riders came to a halt just 50 yards away, their horses breathing clouds of dust as their leader raised a gloved hand. "Return the woman," he called out, his voice deep, arrogant, echoing across the plains. "And we'll let the cowboy die quickly." Colt fired without thinking, the shot whistling past the leader's hat, and the desert exploded into chaos. Bullets kicked sand into the air as Colt grabbed the woman's arm and pulled her behind a fallen beam, their backs hitting the dirt as lead splintered the fence above them. "Any ideas?" Colt shouted. She checked the chamber of a rifle dropped by one of the riders who must have tied her earlier. "Only one," she replied. "Don't let them get close." The first wave charged, and together they fired, Colt picking off riders with deadly precision, the woman lowering enemies with a calm born of hard training and harder history. But there were too many. For every horseman that fell, 3 more thundered into place. Still, she didn't falter. She fought like someone with nothing left to lose and everything left to protect. When a bullet grazed Colt's arm, she pulled him low and shot the attacker clean from his saddle. "Why do they want you?" Colt asked between breaths. She inhaled sharply as pain ripped through her injured shoulder. "Because I know where the water sleeps." Colt frowned. "Water?" "Not a river," she said. "The water that walks an underground spring that can turn dead land into green in a single season. My tribe protects it. They want to own it. Control every ranch from here to the mesas." Colt swore under his breath. A water source like that would shift every balance of power in the West settlement lines. Supply routes, cattle empires, tribal territories. Controlling it would be like controlling life itself. "They think if they take me," she continued, loading another round, "they take the map carved in my memory." The riders regrouped, their leader stepping forward again, adjusting his coat as if the bullets hadn't even grazed him. "Last chance," he shouted. "Give us the girl." Colt looked at her. She looked at him, and in that exchange was an unspoken agreement. They'd both rather die than let the desert fall into the hands of men who'd bleed it dry. The riders charged again, and Colt knew they couldn't hold out forever. He whistled sharply, and his horse, spooked but loyal, bolted toward them. Colt grabbed the woman's hand. "Time to go." She didn't argue. They mounted in one swift motion, Colt grabbing the reins with one hand and his revolver with the other as the horse tore across the desert in a streak of dust and adrenaline. Bullets chased them, kicking up plumes of sand around their heels. The woman clung to his waist, not from fear but from sheer necessity as she twisted to return fire at their pursuers. The riders gave chase, but Colt drove the horse into a narrow canyon, one only locals knew existed, where the high rock walls swallowed sound and sight, hiding them in shadow. They halted behind an outcrop, horse panting, the echoes of the pursuit slowly fading. For a long moment neither spoke. Then Colt finally asked, breath heavy, "What now?" The woman's eyes gleamed with something fierce. "Now," she said, "we make sure they never find what they're hunting." She looked toward the sunlit exit of the canyon as if staring into destiny itself. "And Cowboy, if you ride with me now, there's no turning back." Colt holstered his revolver, jaw set. Wasn't planning on turning back anyway. She gave a faint smile, the first sign of softness she'd shown since he found her, tied to that fence. Together they rode deeper into the canyon, toward secrets the desert had guarded for centuries, toward a war no one in the West even knew had begun. And as their silhouettes vanished into the carved stone passage, the story of their silhouettes, carved stone passage, the story of the cowboy and the unbreakable, Apache Woman was only just beginning, and the world on the other side of their journey would never be the same again.